Welcome to the Executive Lounge. My name is Inshira Addo. This is the Business Thought Leadership Program that brings you insights, experiences, and a walk through the lives of men and women who have scaled the daunting heights of starting, managing, or growing businesses right here at home and around the world. Now, we've had several different people come through the show, but today we have a man who is fast becoming well known for building, or rather designing and building very iconic buildings in Accra. We're going to talk about landscape, we're going to talk about architecture, we're going to talk about life. There's lots to learn today. And my guest today is the principal architect of Key Architectural Company Limited right here in Ghana, Mr. Hussein Fakhry. Welcome to Executive Lounge.
Thank you, Inshira. Thank you for the kind introduction.
Wonderful. It's always nice to talk to you and also to see the kind of work that you're doing. You've got number of properties coming up and contributing to the growing nightscape or a cityscape, if I would call it that.
Skyline.
The skyline, that's right. That's the right description. So let's learn a little about you.
Yeah.
Who's Hussein Fakhry?
Okay. I am, as you know, I am from Lebanon, and I was born and raised there. I went to school in Lebanon, and then I went to the Lebanese university where I did a high diploma in architectural studies for 6 years. After that, I did an MBA, a Master's in Business Administration, also in Beirut. I worked after my graduation 7 years in Lebanon, between in design studios and construction companies. Then I did my own business also there. And then after that, I came to Ghana.
Really?
In 2003.
What was the inspiration to come to Ghana?
Okay, you know, in Lebanon, almost every family has a member or a family in Africa or all over the world also. So we are very much connected to Africa and also to Ghana, to Ivory Coast. So even my dad worked here some 15 years at the beginning of his life, you know, before he traveled back to Lebanon. So we have this connection.
Right.
And then we are lucky that...
so it was a natural progression for you to explore new frontiers and go to Ghana because of that connection.
Yeah,
fantastic. Now, how have you come by the personality, the very cool exterior and the creativity that you apply to the work you do?
If you want to know a little bit about, let's say, my personality, and it's a little bit of a built-up experience. I mean, a built-up also incidents and stories of life. You know, I was born in a family that is known to be a hard-working family. You know, and then my mom and dad also, in particular. I mean, I grew up seeing them working long hours, I mean, for me and my siblings to have a decent life. Then I always feel, I mean, also Lebanon, the nature, the history of Lebanon, but also I always feel it's, I should mention also that I was raised in the war of Lebanon, you know.
During the Civil War?
Yeah, the Civil War started in 1975, and me, I was like 3 years at that time. So I think that experience also, it's bad, it's difficult, it's hard, but also you might learn a lot of things out of it, you know. You can build, if you want to learn from it, you can learn a lot of positive things also. You can be resilient, you can be courage, you can love, you can forgive, you know. So I always feel also that experience, although I don't wish it for you or for anybody or for my kids, but I think it has part of my personality also came from there, you know. Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. So You've become resilient, you've become adaptable because of that. How close were you to the war in terms of where the
Geography.
actual fighting was?
Very close, very close. So it was like a daily surviving game, you know. So this is what you said. We learned to adapt. So we used to go to school because in the morning, let's say, the fights were down, and then when the guys come back from their own work, the war starts to escalate till the night and so on. Yeah, so I don't want to take much of that from your time also, but that part, and I'm sure if anybody has experienced that, if he will think a little bit about it, it might have influenced his life or his story or whatever, hopefully always to the good, you know, to the positivity.
Right. So in 2003, when you arrived in Ghana, that's about 14 years ago, what was it like?
Yeah, to start with, I always feel that when I travel in the region and I come back to Ghana, I always thank God that I came here, you know, because I really feel that Ghana is different than the other countries in Africa and in the region. Because at that time, if I was offered an opportunity to do something anywhere else, I could have took it, you know. Yeah, but to come back to your question, since day one, I really felt very comfortable and very welcomed on personal level, if we are talking on personal or on human level. I met a lot of people, good people who are still till today my good friends. I mean, who were very welcoming and very encouraging. Okay, if you want me to talk a little bit about the city look in that time, you know, in 2003, Accra was just starting, I think, to pick up as a city, it has always been a good city, but I mean, it has started to pick up as a city with buildings, with streets, with you know, with a city shape, you know, and that thing made me a little bit because I'm used to live in a city all of my life, so I felt a little bit bad. I missed that, you know, but through the years from 2003 till today, and Accra really has grown rapidly, and we started to feel that there is starting to see a good city that is shaping up, you know, a good city that needs a lot of attention also. We'll talk about it maybe later.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, I read somewhere about your dreams. You know, share with us what those are.
I have to read it. Huh? I knew that you are going to ask me about it, so I got it with me. This one, it's something that I wrote a few months back, and then it was on the Facebook.
That's
and some friend asked me about it. It's about, I linked what I do to my dreams, you know. I will explain to you a little bit when I read it and finish it. So I said, I sell my dreams. This is what I try to do for living and what I will always be doing. This is the answer that I was looking for years, for the question that a lot of friends, including my kids, raised trying to know more about my path and my career. And in reality, if every project or every job or every task we meet in our professional life, we approach it with the same passion, enthusiasm, and care that we use to build our unending imagination bank, our dreams, the day ones and the night ones. How can we fail if we are selling the love and joy in us, as well as the pain and fear that we want to escape from? If every one of us wraps his dreams with knowledge, with research, and with hard work, branding will be easier and marketing will look smarter. It's more than business.
Wow. That's very philosophical, but it talks about ethics, it talks about work, talks about business, talks about, you know, design, creativity. What inspired that?
What inspires me, let's say, in the jobs that I do in terms of design, you know, every job has characteristics, okay? And if you dig in those characteristics, then the inspiration will start to come by itself. The characteristics that I'm talking about is, let's say, the location, the history of the area where you are doing a project, the urban fabric around that location, you know. So if you research a little bit here, a little bit there, then the inspiration will start to come. So I'm not of the view that inspiration comes when you are sitting on the couch, you know. I always feel that you have to work to bring that inspiration out, and that work is you have to be sensitive to some criterias related to the job that you are doing. It's same thing as if you are in your work, I think. If you want to get inspired, okay, you can go to the beach, but to get inspired, but you have to have your sandwiches, which are the research that you did, the readings that you had last night or the night before, the people that you met and you discussed a little bit with them.
So by applying yourself, you actually open the door to inspiration.
Yeah, if every business situation or every project you meet, you just dig in it, history, people around it, people who are behind the project, fabric of the area where you are doing it. I'm talking in an architectural language, but I think personally that this applies to other jobs, you know. So when you do that, then the inspiration will start to come. I will give you an example. I'm doing a project, a showroom for a distribution company. You know, I don't want to say the name now, but anyway. So when we started the design of the project, the first thing that I did, it's in the industrial area. I went to the site and I got the surveyor, let's say, to put for me all the trees that are on the in the land, in the plot of land. Then we found out that if we want to do what the client wants, we have to cut all of the trees, okay? If we want to do it without scratching, you know. So I said, okay, I want to save those 3 trees. So let me do an internal garden for that showroom, you know. So those 3 trees inspired me to do an internal garden in that project, which I think hopefully one day you will visit it and you will tell me, Hussein, this is a nice one, you know, because that is gonna give the project an experience. It's gonna give it a touch, and then it's gonna make you love to go there to buy what you want to buy. You know what I mean? So that 3 trees inspired me to do what I did in that project.
Wow.
So if I'm doing a project, let's say, suppose in Cape Coast next to the castle, or okay, also that one, if the first thing that if I get a project there, the first thing that should be worrying me is to read and to know more about the castle and the history and the people and who came first, who came after, what, you know. Then those things, we are gonna give you that inspiration.
To then scale the ideas.
Yeah, it's like if you are designing, let's say, your own house, okay? What you will do, you are gonna check on what your daughter likes, okay? What she's after, if she's into art, she's into gymnastics, she's into music, then you are gonna start to do something to let her be happy and to have a good experience in her room. And it's the same, you know, but
so
on a bigger scale.
The past of a particular location and the story surrounding it, the people, the environment, all of that comes together to create the inspiration that then leads to the design.
Exactly,
I would like to see that building with the internal internal gardening. That'd be great.
Yeah.
We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll talk a little more about architecture and the philosophy that, explore your philosophy of design and also explore, materials. There are lots of glass buildings coming up in Accra. Is that the way to build? Is that the smartest way to go about it? And we'll learn a few more things from you.
Okay, thank you.
This is the Executive Lounge. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back to the Executive Lounge. My name is Inshira Ado, and my guest today is the principal architect at Key Architectural Company Limited right here in Accra, Mr. Hussein Fakhry. He's been sharing his experiences as a child growing up in Lebanon during the war, becoming a resilient person, and the fact that he loves living in cities, and he's seen Accra evolve from 2013 to the skyline that we have today. And there's so much more for us to learn. Hussein, what is the place of architecture in life?
Architecture has, it's like music, It has technical part, and then it has imagination part, and it has philosophic part, and it has history part, and so on. So the technical part of architecture for people, for me, for you, for everybody, for the people walking on the street, the people who go to school, the kids, everybody, it's functional.
Okay.
So architecture should be able to provide, the design of architecture should be able to provide for people decent spaces where they can live a good life or spend good time, whether it is a classroom, it's an office, it's a bathroom, it's a bedroom. They should be able to live a decent life, a good life in those spaces.
Right.
And those words, they can be translated into, let's say, light, into ventilation, into finishing, into proportion, into height, into size of the window, into orientation, Yeah, so those are technical things, and it can be calculated the way an accountant calculates the interest of the money. You can calculate what you need in a room, So this is the technical part. Then what makes architecture different from engineering, is the artistic part of it and the cultural part of it, which is, for me, as important as the technical part or the functional part of architecture. And it's the story of the people who lived in that place for a long time, is architecture who can tell it the best. I mean, I don't want to be very architecture, I don't want to lobby for architecture too much, but I mean, when you visit a city, the first impression that you get is the architecture that gives you.
Well, I mean, you talk about Paris, the Eiffel Tower, you
yeah.
talk about London, Trafalgar Square. So the architecture does indeed play a role in telling the story of a people.
Yes.
But it's also good to look at.
It's good to look at it, and it's inspirational for the people who live around it or who pass through it. It is good for the people who are living in that city also. It gives a lot of positivity if you are in a good designed neighborhood. If in a neighborhood you have 3-4 good houses or good buildings or one nice school in a city, it gives a lot of positivity to the people who live around it. Okay, it's a learning tool. It's an educational tool. Architecture. It's not just functional. Okay, if you want to look at it directly, but me and you tomorrow, maybe 20, 30, 40 years, we are gonna we are gonna give the chance to our kids and to our grandkids and so on. So what they will know about us? Okay, that they will know, everybody say that my father was a good man and so on. But also, if these young guys, if they see the work that we did through architecture, it gives a lot of a lot of meaning to their life, you know, because they are seeing something that you did, not as an architect, you as a developer, or if you built a house or whatever, you built your house with attention. Then those generation are gonna give attention to details. They are gonna start to see details in a more critical way.
So a bit like what we do creates some sort of a blueprint that they can then build on.
We can create a blueprint that they will build on, not only in construction, but you know, if you go to Paris, let's say you said Paris, if you stand in front of Eiffel Tower, it's not only about the architecture or the work or the metal work involved or the engineering of it, you know. It's also about the history of the city and the resilience of the city, and the details in it makes every maybe French kid give attention to those details. You know, when he's writing a letter, he's gonna be more attentive to details. When he's doing medicine, he's gonna, and it builds up, you know. I'm not saying that this is the only factor that makes people more sensitive to details, but this is the aspect that you are gonna see even before you start to write and read, you know.
You know, you've just drawn my attention to an experience I had recently. I happened to actually go on the Independence Arch, and it was the first time I'd actually been able to get all the way to the top of the building. And looking at something that had been built well over 60 years, and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, wow, there's marble from that time. Now, it kind of sets a standard for me that if I'm going to do something, I have to do it so well that it lives after I am gone, that it can inspire somebody. So architecture's place is not just to beautify an environment, but also to inspire creativity and certain characteristic that makes the people also thrive.
Okay. It's a flag. Architecture, when Eiffel Tower was built, it's after the World War.
That's right.
And it was a political decision, okay, that this is the end of the war and now we are starting to be industrialized, you know. So this is a flag. It's not just they love nice architecture and so on. No, it's a flag and it's a big message.
Right.
This is what I want to say.
Let's explore the skyline of Accra has evolved. I mean, you've got your own development, you know, not too far from here, the Iris. And for me, the first thing that brought your work to my attention was the Roots Apartment project. What inspired the Roots Apartment project? I mean, it looked to me like a rectangular, you know, a stack of boxes just jutting out a very small prime land in Osu. What inspired the use of space the way you did?
You know, part of the inspiration also is has to do also with the financing and expectations of the return and so on. And for me, let's say if you are talking about Roots, it was a functional box, like you said, and then which is very functional from inside, okay, and then which was wrapped in an artistic way from outside. So the size of the plot has something to do with with the shape of the building. Then the way I see it when I'm building in a street like this, because I'm looking that street, hopefully within few years, is gonna be an urban street. So there are gonna be 5-6 buildings, different heights next to it. So
which is happening.
Which will give them the image that I'm looking for, you know. Now, if you look at it, you are gonna see a block which is standing between, but now there's a building that is going on before Roots, and then there is one after Roots.
After Roots, that's right.
And then hopefully, maybe within few years, other buildings will come up. Then that street will become not only Roots, it's gonna become a neighborhood. Okay, then you will have an urban fabric that has been created. You know, so this is how I look at it. You know, and last time when we met, I told you that for me, not roots, Osu. I felt a lot of positivity toward Osu when I came to Ghana, you know, and because of the traffic in the street, because of the sellers, because of the functions that are there, I felt that this area can be a nice downtown neighborhood.
Do you think that in the last 14 years we've tapped into the potential of a space like Osu?
Look, Shira, I think that we could have planned it better, you know, looking at its history and then the functions that are there and the image that you Ghanaians gave it, you know, when you called it the Oxford Street of Accra and so on. We could have gave it a little bit of more attention in the planning for it and also in the functions that we wanted to open there, you know. But I told you last time, I'm very optimistic always, and I still feel that Osu and all Accra has a lot of potential, you know. It is still very, I mean, it has a lot of empty lands, it has a lot of green areas, a lot of trees, you know, and it's wide, good streets. So it has potential, okay. But you know, we should look at it, I mean, very carefully. I mean, from now, so we don't also
miss the opportunities that are available.
You know?
Let's play in the hypothetical space for a moment. That I have commissioned Hussein to get Accra to where it could be. What things do you think are required to be able to unleash Accra's potential properly?
Look, Shira, a city, okay, it's like a house, okay. In the house, you have the living room, okay, which when you buy a new house, the first thing you take care of it is the living room, isn't it? Where you sit with your family, you watch TV, where you receive people, you know. The living room of a city is its public space, you know, gardens, streets, Independence Square. These are the living room of the city. So if I want, let's say, to say what is the first thing that we should look at is those things, you know. If every year we manage to get one of the public areas redesigned and rehabilitated in a very modern way, not modern in terms of design, but modern in terms of facility. Okay, it can be very traditional, but it has the international standard facility for a public area. This is what I will start with, you know, and this alone also is a big potential for a city, you know, and it has a big role in the development of the city and in the development of the people thinking or behavior toward their city, you know.
Explain that further.
Okay. Today, I will always give you, let's say, if the best way to avoid conflicts in societies is to let people meet, correct?
Yes.
Okay, now if we look on Ghana, let's say, where people meet mostly, they meet mostly in churches and then in mosques.
Yeah. And occasionally in bars.
And occasionally in bars, you know. But there is no places where people will go and really meet, you know, like you are saying, let's say like you go for a walk under the Eiffel Tower, you know, you don't have that. So if we create that, it means me and you, we have more chance to meet. Okay, my son and your son has more chance to meet. And then it becomes, and people start to talk to each other more and to accept each other more. because you are going to see in that public space the different levels of the society, the different religions, the different parties, the different educational backgrounds of the society. They will meet on those public areas. I'm talking about a process that is over years is built. So this is the function of those areas. It's something nice, it's something entertaining, it's something inviting, attractive, but also, again, it has a very, very big role on the long-term development of the
mindset of the people.
Of the mindset of the people.
Wow, that's a big nugget, and we're going to explore that in a moment.
Let me give you an example.
Yes.
If in your just to pinpoint on this issue, if in your house you don't have a living room, you will be in your room, let's say, your kids will be in their room. So you manage to meet maybe, but you don't have a place that invites you to meet. Come guys, let's sit in that living room and watch TV.
I'll tell you what, yeah. You've been sneaking around my house. I used to spend a lot of time in the bedroom. I have a study in the bedroom. I hardly go to the hall, but I made a very conscious effort from the 1st of January this year that I will spend time in the hall. And it's interesting, it's changed a lot of things at home. We sit there, watch TV with the children, we sit there as a family and have conversations, and the bond over the last year has been fantastic. So you do have a point that where there's a common space for people to meet, there's a chance that we rub off each other better and the bonds are stronger.
We fight, and then we manage to
resolve.
You know, we laugh and we enjoy, we eat. So this is the aspect, you know,
wow.
of common areas in a city.
I never thought about that, until now. We're going to take another break. And when we come back, we'll have very little time, but we're going to try and cram a lot of knowledge and insights into that. This is the Executive Lounge. I'm Inchirado, and we'll be back after this. Welcome back to the Executive Lounge. We're learning lots about architecture and its place in society, how it promotes social cohesion if attention is paid to our common open spaces. Hussein Fakhry is my guest. He is the big man, the key or the principal architect at Key Architectural Company Limited. Now, Hussein, how do you brand a city?
Okay, the city in Shira, if you want to brand it, it's a plan, you know, that governments or authorities put. Okay, architecture is on top of that plan, okay, but also all the other aspects move together with that. Okay, and cities usually to start to brand the branding exercise, they research on their strong points, okay, what we have, okay, and then we start to build on it. So if you have nature, you can start to brand yourself around that nature. If you have wildlife, you start to brand yourself around that wildlife, and then you start to develop the other branding aspects. If you have beaches, you start to brand yourself. So it's a big exercise, you know. It has to do with the history, you know. If you, let's say, some cities, they don't have a big history, okay? They create history to brand around it, okay? So this is what...
Am I right in thinking Dubai is a city like that?
I don't want to say, to be very particular about those things, but what I'm trying to
say...
Just
trying to contextualize that.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, they've been able to create lots.
To tell you that, yeah, if you want, Dubai is one of those, okay, you know. It have the Islamic history.
That's right.
But it doesn't, what is being built now doesn't reflect that Islamic history. But they created a hub, and technically, if you want to talk, it's a good work, you know. I have my points to raise about that. I mean, if you want to talk more about it, but if we go back to Accra, so I said that some cities, they don't have history.
That's
they create
They create the history, yeah.
Okay, we have the history.
Right.
Okay, so let's say this is first flag. Okay, we put the history, and then we start to orient if we want to design the architecture to go in that direction. Okay, and then Shira, today is Friday. Okay, we in Ghana here every Friday, or the Ghanaians every Friday, they wear traditional dresses and traditional colors and so on. What about the rest of the days? Who can say the story best? Okay, if we have in this city 3, 4, 5, 6 buildings that are designed carefully to reflect a little bit of Ghana, okay, this is first step in the branding. Okay, so you have those buildings. The moment you drive out of the airport, pop, this is first landmark. Then you go to the ministry to do a document, pop, this is another small building, and so on. Okay, and this will start to become the brand of the city. Okay, you have to show your love to your city when you want to brand it, and you can show it very well in the design. Okay,
is that why you have this giant "I love Accra" sitting outside the Urbano project?
This is one of it, actually. Yeah, but it's not me who invented it. It's everywhere in the world, you know. But me, I did it in Accra, and I always say, I mean, if you want to bring in the financials to what I'm talking about, so if every one of us, if every architect or every developer or everyone who wants to put a building, he will give attention to the overall image of the city, you know, that we want to brand Accra. Let's think, okay, let's think all together. Then that effort, individual effort, is gonna accumulate and do an image for the city, which is the branding. So I love Accra. It's a design that I did for the building, okay, that shows my love to Accra, but also it's making the building nicer, and it's giving value to the building, and it's making people come every day and take pictures in front of the building. So we can do branding, we can spend a little bit of money on the design to make the city, the image of the building nicer, which will pay back, okay? So what I'm trying to do, a branding exercise is gonna cost us a little bit of money, every one of us, but it's gonna pay back. So if we have that perspective, we don't have a problem. So every one of us will do his effort, and then we will compete who will give a better civilized image of Ghana, you know, of the construction, of the architecture in Ghana. And this can be done. It's not something difficult, or it's not something super expensive, you know. You can do it with local materials, but it needs a lot of research and a lot of thinking and a lot of design work, you know. I'm not talking about I love Accra. I love Accra, it's the idea behind it is big, I mean, and how it escalates on the building, okay? But I'm talking other projects that we can work it out to brand Accra. It's gonna cost us effort and money a little bit more, but it's gonna pay back.
It pays back. I mean, I've always wondered what can be classed as an iconic building, and what its place is in the branding of a city, for example.
Okay, an iconic building, it shouldn't be a big building, you know. It shouldn't be, let's say, a tower. A tower is very good. It's because you can see it from far, and it has a very physical,
an imposing presence in the skyline.
Yeah, but iconic building, it has to do a lot about the location, okay, where it is located in some very strategic points that will make it look like visible from different angles, let's say, in the city, you know. So the location of the iconic building is very important. Then the design of the iconic building is very important, okay. And the symbolic aspect behind the design, what is gonna give you when you see it, you know, and for how long are you gonna remember it, okay. So these are the two main points of the iconic building, and they are very important to give you guidance in the city and to give you direction, you know, in the city, and then how, when you drive in the city, how you will enjoy the city. Okay, you are gonna, let's say, if you walk, you face Tower A. Then if you turn at that, let's say, roundabout, you go right, you drive 5 minutes, then you see a smaller, nice building, you know, and then, so those references in the city, this is what we call iconic buildings. They are directional monuments in the city. Okay.
So a monument doesn't have to be big. It just has to be well designed, it has to be strategically placed, and it has to be memorable.
It has to be memorable, and also it has to be very functional. Okay, because if you put any iconic building and functionally it doesn't work, so it's not gonna, people are not gonna use it for long. So you are not gonna be able later on to pay to maintain it or to keep it nice.
I'm glad you talked about that. Yeah. You know, there's lots of talk about climate change and, you know, the weather patterns and everything, and the world will get warmer and warmer. I see lots of glass buildings. Is that the functional? Is that the best approach to doing stuff? What are the optimum combination of materials that would be useful for our environment?
Okay, look, Shira, the glass is, for me, the glass and the concrete, they are very precious materials, I mean, that has been invented or whatever. So we shouldn't be really very afraid of the glass, you know, because also transparency is nice. Daylight also is environmental. If you don't put glass where you should put, then you have to put more lights on. Okay, so we shouldn't fear that, okay, but we should fear using it in a bad way, putting it in the wrong, let's say, orientation, if you want to say, okay, to the sun, okay? Or you can also use it, but also you have to protect it. You have to have shading elements with it, okay? So let's say if you are building to the east, you don't put just a full glass wall from first floor till 10th floor and so on. Even if you tell me, okay, let's get the very top quality of glass, doubly glazed with insulation, with this, with that, but why you want to go in that direction, you know, when you can use the glass, because whatever you will do, even if you get the very high grade of glass, you are gonna still have the same transmission effect of heat, a little bit less, you know. But the solution for that is, let's say, to provide shading elements in front of the glass. So when the sun comes, it will not hit it directly. It will hit a shade. It can be a screen. It can be a perforated, I don't know, aluminum sheets. It can be a green screen cascading on the elevation that will give shade on the glass, you know. Yeah, so if you want to have, as an architect or as a client, you want to have one full elevation of glass, okay, you can choose the north direction of the building and you put the full glass elevation there, because the sun doesn't come from the north, you know. So it has always the critical part of those things is how to use it and where and in which way, you know. And everything has a little bit, if you work it out, if you think more, if you calculate more, you can solve it. Or you can minimize it, you know. Yeah. So there is no material for me in the construction that is bad. Okay.
It's how it's used.
It's how we use it. We make it bad or we make it good, you know.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, I think you said this earlier, and in the building of Eiffel Tower or Trafalgar Square or the square at St. Petersburg, or even every iconic public space, even though it's built for the people, is not built by the people. And I'm not talking of the people as in the broad base of society, but authorities, the people who have been giving custodianship over the people, and the spaces do that. What 2 or 3 things do you think that authorities in Ghana would have to start looking at if we're going to create cities that would make the world want to come and see what we have here?
The authorities in the planning exercise, let's say for a city like Accra, they should, to me, first of all, we should, the politics, like Paris, it was a political decision to be designed and, and organized the way it is. It was not an artistic decision, okay? And it was also, it was not, people were not happy about it at the beginning when the authorities planned it and did it the way it is. So authorities should come, should bring the experts to put a good planning for Accra, let's say, and impose that planning, okay, on me, on you, on everybody to come out with a good city, okay. Few things, in that big planning, the authorities can come and say that these 10 lands, okay, or plots or whatever, can only be built, let's say, if we do an international design competition on it, okay? We can say that those 20 or 30 lands, we can only build it if we do a local design competition on it, okay? Then you will get the best of the design for those lands. Those lands, the authority will select it according to criteria also, on the location, on the importance, on the history of the area, and so on, you know. Then you will start to see that you have iconic buildings that you are asking about, all around, nice design building all around, and then this will spread, because the moment you put a nicely designed building in an area, people will start, it becomes a trend, okay? Then you put Accra on the architectural map of the world, so when you open a magazine, let's say, or a website about the international architecture, whatever, then you can start to see, oh, Accra, Accra. Then people will start to have that perception that Accra is
a happening place to go and see nice buildings.
This is what Dubai is doing now. No, what Dubai did and Abu Dhabi is doing now.
Okay, so you have the Burj Khalifa now.
They opened the Louvre.
That's right.
In Abu Dhabi. I don't know if you've seen it.
Wow.
Yeah. So
there's a lot of planning. So a certain amount of a desire and a clear plan, and getting the people in shape, but not just working within your space, also going beyond your borders so that you can bring the world to you.
Exactly.
Wow. See, there's a lot more we need to learn, but unfortunately, that's all time will permit us. This is one of the very few conversations we've had on the Executive Lounge that I really believe that we should do a second part.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Thanks for you. Thank you for the opportunity.
It's been good.
I appreciate it, and I wish you and your program a lot of luck.
Thank you.
And I wish to Accra and to Ghana also the best, because it's my city now, and
that's
it's
right.
where my kids are growing up.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
well, we'll certainly look out for more interesting designs and projects. We have a culture and a tradition on this show that we sum up the lessons I have personally learned from this conversation. So here are my 5 take-homes from this conversation we were saying today. Number 1 is that we must develop a sense of adaptability. Growing up in war-torn Beirut, he had to be resilient and take each day as it comes and make the best out of it. So if life throws lemons at you, make some lemonade and live. Number 2 is that you should never stop dreaming. You should always see possibilities in places. He talks about his fondness for Osu, taking walks in Osu, looking at the place and imagining what the cityscape or the skyline could be in the future. So there's so much we can do. The future you're looking for is in your mind. And when you start working at it, the inspiration will flow. Number 3 is that everything you do has to have value for today and tomorrow. As he says, architecture encapsulates the culture of a people and part of their history, if not all of it. So it's important that when you're doing things, that the legacy element is important, that you're able to do things with the future in mind, so people can look at what you've done and be able to piece together the story of the space and the story of the people. A fourth thing I've learned also is that the materials available to you, and not just in building, but the things around you, are only as good as how well you use them. If you use a material incorrectly, it is no longer the material that is bad, but it is your approach to using it. So apply things the way they should be, and you will have good outcomes. And the fourth thing is that remain passionate and optimistic about the things that you love. A lot of us may see Accra and say, Accra is chaotic. Hussein sees Accra and says, it has great potential. So, go forward, make rain. This has been a fantastic opportunity to come your way with another edition of the Executive Lounge, and we look forward to seeing you again next week. Catch the repeat and make sure that you follow us on YouTube and watch the show on YouTube channel as well. We'll be back again soon. Thank you to our friends at Villa Monticello and our friends at X-Men for the grooming. To the team that made this happen, thank you. We'll see you soon. Go forward, make rain. Shalom.